He accused me of loafing on a ball, where I was fooled on a ball that was hit by Jim Rice, and that ball had gotten a sun. And then when I got off the field, Billy Martin said, "I'm going to kick your, you know," and I looked at him like, you know, Billy, you must be crazy. I was really the first big-name black player to play for the Yankees, excluding Elston Howard. And it was an era where, you know, as a black and speaking out and talking, it was pretty unusual. So I was known for speaking out, although I didn't, mainly because it was unusual for a black athlete to respond or to say anything that made sense, if you will. And so at the same time, I knew that I couldn't fight because I would be branded as a player that fought a authority, and you couldn't do that in the era I was in. So I basically took it, and the only thing I could do was retort verbally. I knew that I couldn't do anything physically because you just would damage your future and career. And of course, I would damage any other minorities that were trying to come along and establish themselves as well. You know, when you recognize that teams are owned by whites, most whites have most of their friends that are whites, and most of the people that they interact with are as well. And so they wind up hiring people they know, people they're friends with, people they've spent time with. And in baseball, many times people hire friends and buddies.
Ed Randall with Reggie Jackson. Can you talk about the feeling of going back to Cooperstown, to be on that stage, to welcome in the new Hall of Famers, what that's like for you?
I guess I remember when I went back in my first time, and Stan the Man and Henry and Willie were behind me, and Marichal, you know, Seaver, bench, those Kaline, Carlton, Koufax, you know, Bob Feller, and, you know, people like that. It was Ernie Banks, Billy Williams. It was impressive. To see them there, it's very humbling. You know, you realize that you need to be grateful and that you're humbled. Thank God that you're there, and thank God for your talents. You get yourself in perspective very quickly, and it's so easy to be humbled. It's a very nice feeling to be included, to feel almost insignificant. It's just nice to have that kind of support behind you and to be included in that group.
And you are such a historian of the game. You really appreciate the setting, the people, the moment.
I appreciate the greatness of the game. You know, the players that stand behind you. You know, Stan the Man and 3,600 hits, I think. Henry with 3,700. You know, 700 home runs. Willie Mays, you know, arguably the greatest player of anyone's generation. And, you know, Mantle and players like that are there. And Seaver and Warren Spahn was there and was alive when I went in at 360-some victories. You know, it's a wonderful experience. I probably enjoyed it as much as anyone because I was a fan at the same time. And I remember playing in the All-Star game in 1969. Players voted. I was the leading vote getter. And I played 4 innings and then went and collected autographs. And enjoyed it.
At Bob's Mass on Thursday, John Mara told the story that when his father, Wellington, was going into the Football Hall of Fame, he consulted with Bob Shepard. And he said, "Do you have any advice?" And John Mara related that Bob Shepard said to Wellington Mara, "Did you ever watch Lou Gehrig's speech? It was only 90 seconds long. Keep it short," as Bob would say. And I know you consulted with Bob about your speech. A lot of people may not know that.
Yes, I consulted with him in my Hall of Fame speech. He said it was much too long, so I shortened it. I consulted with him when they hung my plaque in center field at Monument Park, and I consulted with him when they retired my number, and I finally got it down to 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Nothing like going to a speech professor.
Yes, yeah, and you know, I covered everything I needed to cover in less than 2 minutes.
Good for you. If I could, let me ask you about the guys that are going in, starting with Doug Harvey and your feelings about the man that they called God.
I really thought Doug Harvey was a tremendous umpire. I never really understood why he wasn't enshrined in the Hall of Fame sooner. And I really think of the three, and one is a player, great player, Andre Dawson. Whitey Herzog was a great manager and deserving. But Doug Harvey, you know, I don't remember him really having a bad game as an umpire. I remember the best umpire that ever umpired for me was Nestor Shylock. And I had Doug Harvey in several World Series. I played in 5 or 6 World Series, 5 World Series, 5 I think. And he was tremendous. And at the time when I was playing in the World Series, the best umpires umpired the World Series. And I played in a couple playoff games where only 2 guys did home plate. They just switched first. The best umpires operated first and home. And they switched back and forth. Bill Haller and Nestor Shylock. And Doug Harvey was the same type umpire. So I saw him in a lot of World Series. And he'd call balls and strikes on one knee. And, you know, I was a demonstrative guy and amped up at the plate. And I would grunt a lot. And I swung and missed on a strike one, and he looked at me and said, "Key down, son. It's going to be all right." But he'd call balls and strikes, and ball might be, you know, inch or two off the plate, and he'd hold up his fingers. He says, "A little outside, that's a ball." You know, but I thought he was great. I thought he was great for the game. I thought he was a lovely, wonderful guy that never had a bad attitude. He loved the game and loved life, and he just seemed like a real, I don't know if he is or not, a real good Christian man.
Whitey Herzog's going in, and he lost 3 straight playoff series to the Yankees. You were part of the last 2 in '77 and '78. You broke his heart.
Well, that was my job. I loved Whitey, but you know, there's only one penthouse at the top in October, and I had the keys.
Andre Dawson, a great player, a 5-tool player who had to wait so long, but fortunately he's in.
You know, there are a few guys like that. I know Tony Perez with 1,680 or 90 ribbies. It took him a long time to get into the Hall of Fame. And I think the great Juan Marichal, it took him about 6 years or so to get in the Hall of Fame. Duke Snider, it took a while. And what people don't know, the great Joe DiMaggio didn't get in on the first ballot. I mean, so, you know, it's a surprise to some people that some of the great players don't get in the Hall of Fame. I think it was the 9th or 10th try for Andre. Is that right? And so, but we'll be there to welcome him in as a Hall of Famer, and we'll enjoy every minute of it.
Lou Piniella's decided that this is going to be it this season. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I kind of could feel that. I could feel that coming. You know, I could feel Lou getting tired of it, getting worn out by it. I don't know that the game has passed him by, but I don't think the game has passed him by. I think he's had maybe enough. But, you know, I think that, you know, I wish I could have worked for Lou. I never really did an everyday job in baseball as a staff member, but I really do wish I could have worked with him, because I liked him. We enjoyed each other a lot. We had a lot of conversation, and Lou is a pretty pensive guy. He has a lot. He does a lot of thinking. He has a lot of content. He's not just a baseball manager that yells and screams or rants. There's a lot there, and I would believe that he got bored before he got tired. And I think that if he had someone to be with him and share things with him, that he could have stayed around the game. But I honestly feel he just got bored with it.
Last thing before we go. Now that the ceremonies are done, in your private moments, what do you think about when you think about George Steinbrenner?
There's a lot there for George and I. I don't know if I can talk about it with you, you know, but I don't really like to share some of the things, Ed. Probably not as ready as I would like to be. I don't think people knew him like I knew him. today's player didn't really see him when I saw him when he was in full bloom. There's a lot of guys that couldn't really handle George. But you know, he was great for me. We became great friends. That relationship that Bill Russell and Red Auerbach had, and the relationship that Bart Starr and Lombardi had, was, you know, something that I felt that George and I had, and I thought it was special, and I wanted it to stay that way, and I'm very proud of it.